All right. Well, welcome everybody. We're so excited that you're with us here today, live on Facebook for episode 3 of the Extraordinary Life Show. As you can see, Jim Cathcart is not with us today. He's speaking. He had a speaking engagement in wonderful Texas, and so he was able to work a deal and help us to get connected to the infamous, the tremendous Tracey Jones. So Tracey, I am so glad that you are here with us today and joining us with all of our Extraordinary Life viewers, whether you're watching the recording or whether you're watching us live. We're so glad you're here. And if you would help us out and you would inspire a few other people to become awakened to living the extraordinary life, go down there and click on the share button and share this live video and encourage other people to join in with us, because what you're going to hear today is truly extraordinary and it's also tremendous. If you don't know who Tracey Jones is, which I don't know how you could live on planet Earth without knowing the name Tracey Tremendous Jones, but she is the author of 8 books and counting. She actually has a brand new one coming out today, which we're going to get a chance to talk about. But she's got an extensive experience as a leader and as a motivator and an encourager. She has spent 12 years in the Air Force. She has another 10 in corporate boardrooms, an MBA in global management, which that sounds exciting and really a lot of expertise in that category, I'm sure. But she's built an impressive career as a corporate fixer. Her deep love of education has propelled her to continue her educational pursuits and philosophy of leadership and doctoral program. She's also got a pretty good heritage. If you may know her late father, Charlie Tremendous Jones. Maybe some of you have quoted him like I have for over 20 years. Leaders are readers. You become like the 5 people that you spend the most time with and the books that you read. That dictates your future. And I've used those quotes, and his impact on so many thousands and millions of people's lives have been impacted by her father's works. His libraries are extensive, and you can imagine being the daughter of Charlie Tremendous Jones. She's had a whole upbringing. Her informal education is probably more valuable than her formal education, but she's got both, and we're glad she's here with us today. Tracey, thanks for joining with us.
Thank you so much, David, and hello to all our viewers. Thanks for joining us.
Well, Tracey, we talk about living the extraordinary life. You obviously have lived an extraordinary life, and you continue to go above and beyond what's usual, regular, and customary. Tell us a little bit about your background growing up in the tremendous household and what that meant to you and the principles that you learned on living an extraordinary life.
Well, thanks. That's kind of where it all started. I grew up, as you said, with a father that was a motivational speaker, and he initially was a life insurance salesman. So he had that real passion for connecting. He had that charisma. He had that something in him that just really connected with people. But he was a motivational speaker, and also growing up with him, I tell people it was a little bit like a cross between boot camp and a sitcom. I mean, everything was very disciplined and purposeful, but it was always so much fun and a lot of comic relief. Anybody that knew him knew he was very pragmatic, very serious about life, but he also embraced the fact that nothing worked, and he'd smile and laugh and move on with it. So he had this beautiful blend of combining his love of work, which was sharing people, his love of books, and before was life insurance, and of course his love of Christ and his love of just people with work. And so we would go on these vacations growing up. Our summer vacations were, we'd pack into a big RV. There were 6 of us and 2 adults and cases of books. And I can remember one summer we drove from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, all the way down to Mexico City, Mexico in a Volkswagen bus, okay? And then we'd stop along the way and he'd speak and we'd sell books, and then we'd stay at a KOA campground and have a great time. So it was always that everything we do was very purposeful, but it was also a lot of fun. So that kind of, I carried that throughout my life, and I had to laugh because you say, you know, an extraordinary life. I thank you for that. I kind of look at it as he taught us, he told me very young, Tracey, just go out and earn your stripes. And to me, what that meant is just go out and experience as much of life as you can. And I never really know if I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, but I know every opportunity that comes my way, I'm going to pour everything into it, learn everything I can, and then I'm off to the next thing. So it's an extraordinary journey, you might say, kind of thing.
Yeah,
It's really
you
what.
bet. Well, in terms of our definition is that we're all about people like you that continue to go beyond ordinary in the things that you've been given. And each and every one of us face our own struggles and crises, but we don't accept those as our ordinary life. We go above and beyond what's usual, regular, and customary to live a better life. And maybe you could share a little bit about maybe a struggle or an obstacle that you've overcome in your life journey, and maybe some of the principles that you applied to that situation that helped you to overcome it.
Well, I think the biggest thing that I have come to realize at this stage in my life, and as you mentioned, I'm still in school, there's still so much I am unlearning, relearning, and learning, is the struggle has always been, I always kind of had an idea what I wanted to do, but the struggle was making sure you had the right authentic relationships in your life to help you get to that next level. And, you know, you heard my background. I was in the military. My dad had me tough. I was raised tough. I can do this. I'm tenacious. And I think a lot of my struggles throughout various segments of my life, and I just had one 6 months ago, were about that I had a hard time letting go of trying to do everything on my own. And the minute you realize that, Warren Bennis said it, none of us is as smart as all of us, and you realize that when you get the right people in your circle, that's when you can fully take off. So I had to go through quite a few, my share of betrayals and letdowns, and are you kidding me, which really deeply wounded me, but also woke me up to the fact it was like a clarity call. You talked about the crisis. Although crises really rip the carpet out from underneath us, it also wakes us up and gives us a sense of urgency that something's not right, and life is telling you something's not right. So you need to expunge whatever's in your life that's not right, and sometimes life just rips it away from you, or you need to say, hey, I need to surround myself with this. So it's happened more than once, and I have to think that I'm getting a little smarter and discerning about, okay, I need to stop surrounding myself with this or focusing on this and get on the right path. So I would just say that if you're going through this in your journey and I heard the metaphor of a slingshot, and I felt like throughout my life, I knew what I wanted to do, but I kept getting yanked back. And that is all about the tension that when you do dial it in and you do find that passion and the right people, boy, that tension, when you release and you get set on the proper vector, that is just going to catapult you to momentum that you never could have imagined. So I've always felt that those setbacks and those crises have personally been the network, the paving stone, the foundation for greatness. And that's helped me not take it personal, not suck my thumb and cry, not seek vengeance. It is what it is. There's things I can do better, and I'm going to move on and get ready for the next launch.
Preach it, sister. You're talking the truth right there. I love it. Well, you obviously just have written a new book, and you kind of took some of the old principles that your dad had shared and you put a new twist on it. And you're speaking directly to millennials, and it's a message to millennials. And just to give some clarification to the different generations, because we have a lot of people that are watching our show that are in different generations. We've got the boomers, we've got the Gen Xers, the Gen Ys, millennials. We've got them from cradle to grave in some respects. So give us a little bit of a background of maybe a definition, if you will, of the different generations and what you've noticed in your extensive experience between them and the differences that maybe could be unveiled today on the show.
Sure. Well, I think I'm a boomer. I was born in '63, so I think the tail end of boomers is '65. So these are the folks that came back from the world wars, and then boom, babies booming everywhere, as my father and mother had 6 of them. Gen X came after, I think, 65 to roughly 83, 82, and the millennials, Gen Y, what they're saying is there wasn't enough population then, so they kind of flow, sorry Gen Yers, they flow the Gen Yers into the millennials, and that is probably 84 to roughly 2000. So what it means is you're coming of age into the workforce is, you hit it right around the time of the millennial 2000. So what I remind people is that's just terminology. It doesn't mean anything. And before the baby boomers, they didn't even call generations certain names. So what it is it's something that just lets you know kind of what generation you grew up in. What I found is across the generations, no matter where it is, because some of our audiences have people in their 80s and 90s, and some still have kids still in high school. And I even go down to elementary school age. Everybody still is hungry to find themselves, hungry to be valued, and hungry to find a place that respects them. So I think that is a universal truth. Also a universal truth amongst all the generations is our innate need for attachment. We need to be in a community. We need to be with people. And that is from whether you are an evolutionist or whether you're a creationist or somewhere in between, that is just a fact of life that psychologists say. So I would say that's a big thing too, that people really want to focus on, is getting involved in that right community, be it your friends or your work or your church or your family. And the differences are, how the book came about is I had a lot of millennials ask me, hey, Tracey, how do I become a leader? And so that's really what the book came from. Now, it talks a lot about followership. And I think the most important thing, at least my generation learned, the boomers, was you have to really put in a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to climb the path to leadership. We knew it wasn't going to happen right away, and we knew it took a lot of effort. And I think if you haven't learned that early in life, you hit that key gate of exiting college or your parents' nest and hitting adulthood, which is one of the 5 major gates in development. And all of a sudden you think, wow, I'm just supposed to be at the top of the game. And that's not the way life works. Maybe in a weird anomaly it might be, but for most of us, it's a gradual process of maturation, of understanding your leadership personality, and finding great organizations and people that can further hone that. It's also about taking your share of crappy jobs and bosses to learn what you don't want to be. So I think that as I'm sharing with them, it's a journey. It's not going to happen overnight. You don't have to find the perfect spouse, partner, have 20 kids, and get your dream job or start your dream company all within your first year, all before you're 20. I think they take a lot of, oh my gosh, I think in today's society with technology, and I love technology, there's this misconception that it all just happens like that. And you of all people know, nothing ever happens like that. And it's like a larvae coming out of a cocoon into a butterfly. You have to struggle and you have to push out of it. And that's the joy and that's the beauty. So really just helping them dial into it. And the book really is about the quickest way to become an effective leader is to really hone your followership skills. Because if followership is beneath you, you're not going to be able to step into the leadership role, because if you really think about it, they are two sides to the same coin. So I really help them realize as they're going into their workplace, if they can really engage with their employer or their customers, or if you're an entrepreneur, your customer base or who you work with, then you can really develop that humility, that teachability, and learn all the things in life that you don't yet know. You think you know, but you don't know, because I was once 20 and knew everything in the whole world. And then I'm like, oh my goodness, wow, there's a lot I didn't know. So I think if you are open to being developed, and the millennials that I talk to are, then you realize how this followership can build you up so then you can be of more service to others. And that's the meaning of life.
Fantastic. Well, with this different generation gap, we have these individuals that are having a hard time understanding the millennial. And so maybe you could speak to the boomers or the Gen X, Gen Ys that are trying to lead that millennial. What kind of encouragement or advice could you give? I heard somebody once say that millennials don't do 2 things. They don't read and they don't listen. But and that's, negative towards a millennial. And oftentimes I think millennials kind of get the short end of the stick because the majority of people are giving them a hard time of not necessarily being as ambitious, or maybe holding out for the very best, or thinking that success happens easily. But they're very intelligent. They're very hardworking when they get around the right mission or purpose. So maybe share with us who are not in that millennial generation how to do a better job of leading a millennial.
Right. Well, I would sit down with them. First of all, I would help them really know themselves. And whether it's there's so many different personality profile tests out there, from DISC to Myers-Briggs to Stern-Fires to Stan. I mean, I even took 3 new ones that I didn't even know existed. So help them understand what their innate strengths are so that they can dial into it. The other thing is too, if you can help them understand their followership profile. Do they want to be a maverick and work on their own? Or do they want you to tell them what to do every step of the way? There's between there and then. And so you may have a boss that really wants to empower their employees. And if you have a millennial that doesn't want that, that's going to be very frustrating to them. Whereas if you have a millennial that really wants to co-lead, which is what I've always been, I want to be the co-leader. And then I work for a boss that is very micromanaging, and it's like, whoa, step it back. So it's a culture clash. So you got to make sure the boss and the millennial, and the book has a chapter for the leader and then a chapter for the follower. You want to make sure that you are equally yoked. Okay, it's a biblical principle, it's a life principle, because if you're pushing too hard or you're pulling back, you're just going to beat each other up. So I would really say sit down with the millennials and don't prejudge the millennials. Although you read all this stuff, and hey, for the baby boomers, I'm talking to you, I'm a baby boomer. We were the original me generation. Remember, we were the hippies and the 80s partiers. Nobody was more into themselves than the baby boomers, okay? So we say this about the millennials, but we all go through that, all right? For the millennials, I would say step up your game as far as just doing the basic, your worth ethic, your respect for your employer. Remember, you can't get respect until you give respect, and that it's going to take time, and be open to the fact that you didn't start this company. You're working for this company, and maybe you'll go like me and then run a company. But in the meantime, you got a lot to learn, and just to really keep an open mind and an open heart, and try and be a collective part of the team. But find out, get your identity clear, and then work with them on what is a good match for their innate leadership personality and their temperament. Now, for my boomer friends, we really should work to develop everybody. But for the millennials, I'm going to tell you this. More often than not, you're going to be in jobs where people don't develop you. You develop yourself. And in the book, we talk about that through reading, watch TEDx talks, get on calls like this, hang out with great people, because the person most responsible, millennials, for your development is you. Okay, there's a lot out there, and I hope that you work for some great bosses that see the greatness in you and uncover that. But in the event you don't, that shouldn't stop you from getting where you need to go.
Great. Well, for those of you that are just joining us, we're talking with Tracey Tremendous Jones and about our new book, Message to Millennials. And we're really breaking down some of the success habits and the patterns that we talked about in episode 2 about what it means to live an extraordinary life. Whether you are in the millennial generation or you're a baby boomer or somewhere in between, this is about adapting habits and patterns. And your dad was obviously a really voracious reader, and he probably instilled some of those habits in you. His library is extensive. For that younger generation that maybe didn't have as much of a dependency on books, or didn't have the parenting that you did in terms of the value on reading. Talk a little bit more about the value of actually having a hard copy book and the principles that can come out of that to help you to live a more extraordinary life.
Well, thanks. There's 2 things they call that. In the Greek, there's a term called metanoia, which means the turning of your mind, which actually means mind renewal. And then there's a school of psychotherapy called bibliotherapy, which means that you can actually heal whatever ails you by reading a book. And I can remember when people would come to see my father and ask him for advice, you know what he'd do? He'd give them a book and say, read from this. And they'd be like, I can't believe that spoke to me just when I'm just telling you. You know what, guys? I was not a big reader. I read, and I have a kind of an engineering background, so I read on a need to know. If it wasn't tech data or science related, I don't have time for the mushy gushy motivational stuff. Okay, boy, man, was I wrong. So there's knowing how, and there's knowing why. Okay, and this is 85 to 90% of the job, because this is your motivation. Anybody can learn anything, and if it's too complex, they'll they'll program a robot or a computer to do it, okay? But nobody brings the heart, nobody brings that. And when you can link the cognitive ability with your I will and your IQ together, you are unstoppable. I don't care what generation you're in. So I didn't read a lot growing up because there was books everywhere. I tell people I think I had to read How to Win Friends and Influence People before I got to read The Pokey Little Puppy. And I'm like, I'm tired of all this reading. And you know what? I'm in school now for my doctorate. I was just in my cohort class last week. I read so much stuff, and you know what? I could research and read 24/7 because I just did not recognize the value of it. It came in, but it didn't land. And I told you, David, I work with men in prison that have been behind bars for 20, 30, 40 years. Some aren't getting out. And we read books, motivational, personal development books. And I watch the transformation in them. And I go to elementary school kids and I watch them read. I'm just saying, it doesn't matter if you don't have a taste for it, just start little, 15 minutes a day. If you pick up a book and it's like, I don't like this, don't finish it. Some people are like, well, I have to get through it. No, you don't. It's a free world. You can read whatever you want, but just read, even if it's just little excerpts. Just keep, because neuroscience, you're going to build those new synapses in your brain, and you're going to start uncovering new thought patterns and going away from the old ones, the old stinking thinking, and then you're going to start running some new pathways to your brain, and you're going to start transforming as a person. I promise you that.
Yeah, what your dad said, the quote, 5 years from today, you'll be the same person that you are today, except for the books that you read and the people that you meet.
Absolutely.
And that hasn't changed.
It hasn't. Well, and you talked about that with the millennials. You guys, this book is for everybody. I like to say it's the wisdom of the ages. It's like when you see, I'm an amateur astronomer, when you see starlight and it comes to you and it's 50 million years old, okay? It's still the same principles. These are timeless truths. And however you want to apply them in today's context is great, but it's still the great things that bind us all together, the great truths, the great relationships, the great people.
Yeah, and it's one thing that I found in reading it is that it would be a great book to transfer a lot of the thoughts that I think, but maybe don't come well from me, to somebody that I would like to see adopt these principles. So being able to gift that gift of knowledge to a friend or a family member or a son or a daughter or anybody that's meaningful in your life, or maybe a corporate manager that maybe is in need of some insights because they're having a hard time, dealing with the millennial generation or the younger generation for that matter. I want to have real quick in terms of they can get the book electronically and in hard or softback.
They sure can on Tremendous Leadership. We're working out some Amazon glitches right now, but the audio will be uploaded too. But they can download it off Amazon or on Tremendous Leadership right now. They can get the paperback on Amazon right now as well.
Fantastic. And the website for that is tremendousleadership.com?
Sure, absolutely. tremendousleadership.com.
Fantastic. Well, these last few minutes, Tracy, I want to do just kind of a hot seat interview, if you will, and just have you give us some quick tips based upon your extensive knowledge, corporate experience, and being an entrepreneur. Our fans are trying to live more extraordinary lives in the marketplace and at home and in health. So if I could get just a couple of answers from you to help you to translate your experiences to everybody else, I think that would be quite tremendous. So the first thing is that where do you gain motivation and inspiration?
From my faith. I'm a Christian, so the Holy Spirit's in me, so he is quite the infusion. So from my faith, I take time every morning to do some devotionals and just get my spirit centered and where it should be. So I approach the world as Jesus would, not as Tracey, because Tracey can be tremendous, but Tracey's human just like everybody else. I read an awful lot. I read so much stuff, and I'm working on my doctoral research, so I don't only read what's current and trendy, but I read peer-reviewed actual academic research. And it's great to read what people are saying, but I love the Deming quote, "In God we trust, all others bring data." And so many times I've heard people say something, and when you really drill down to what the data is, that helps me get the motivation that I'm really drilling down and getting clarity on the issue. Also, my tremendous team, when you get the right people in your circle, you start that flywheel momentum. It's exponential. When you have people that believe in you more and want your success more than you do, I gain motivation from that. And our tremendous community, we get our fans on Facebook. And also for my pet lovers out there, I get tremendous inspiration and love, unconditional love from my many rescue cats and dogs. So animals are truly a blessing, and I get great satisfaction out of pouring my love into them and getting back so much.
Yeah, you've got quite the zoo going on from what I understand. So the next question is that if you were only able to give one bit of advice to help somebody to live a more extraordinary life, well, what kind of advice would you give them?
I would give them the advice to never compare yourself to somebody else. Comparison is the thief of joy. Your journey is very unique and specific. We are all innately coded differently from a DNA standpoint. We are all given different spiritual gifts. So don't look at anybody else. Dial in. The world has put you on this earth with a unique set of circumstances, how you were raised, even if it was terrible. If I told you how my father was raised, you would not believe it. But you can take all this and turn this with the proper environment into a tremendous outcome that you define. Now, sure, you want to take counsel and input from great people, but I say that in a positive way. Own your self-worth, know your self-worth, and don't let anything stop you. If you want to go for something, go for it. If you feel like I'm not ready, stop. You will be ready. You will develop your wings on the way down. So I would just say, as extroverted and type A as I may be, I actually probably missed a couple opportunities because I was too timid about things. So I would say go for what you know in your heart you want and what you feel you're innately gifted. And then also, if life gives you the opportunity, jump at it. It may not be a job you're going to stay at for 10 years. You heard my career. I've had 5 different careers, and I'll probably have 5 more. But just be secure in yourself, because you're going to grow into an incredible picture of yourself. You can't see it now until you have like 20, 30 years of background story, but you write your own narrative. Don't let anybody else do it. Don't blame it on anybody else. Don't hesitate to pick up the pen. You write your own narrative.
I just saw a quote today, and it was unauthored at the time, but it said, flowers don't compare themselves to the other flowers, they just bloom.
I love it.
And I think that one of the things that many of us have struggled with at some point is when other flowers are blooming and we are not, and we're in the same flower bed, so we think. What would you share to that person that maybe is working hard, doing all the right things, but just not getting the extraordinary results in some aspect of their life that they really desire?
Well, I am so glad you said that, because, and in our industry, it's how many views did you get? How many books did you sell? How much are you paid to speak? And you know what? I got to tell you, you got to look at your motives. If your motives are pure, even if if this book impacts one life, aren't I successful? Or do I have to sell 1 million copies before I'm successful? I mean, is it about worldly success, or is it about true inner changing the life of one person? And I would say, listen, excellence is defined, Aristotle said this, in just doing the best that you can do. If you are putting everything you got into it, the results matter not. And when I came back to take over the business from my father, I'm like, how on earth there's no way I'm going to be, I know I'm not going to be like him. All I'm going to do is be obedient to the legacy and do the best that I can do. And the results are going to be what the results are going to be. If you worry about judging yourself or measuring yourself by the standards of everybody else, it's going to steal your joy. Just go with it and know. And listen, this is not Pollyanna weird speak. I struggle with this every single day. And the devil wants to pull you away and say, but look at them. Look at their lives. And social media is terrible about it, because you look at everybody else and you're like, oh my gosh, everybody has it so much more together. Don't fall into that trap. And, just know, as long as you are doing the best that you can do, there's no more you can deliver. And when the time is right, life is going to open that opportunity and those blessings and that prosperity. And prosperity doesn't just mean book sales, but you may be touching lives in ways you're not even aware of. And that's true legacy building. So I would say focus on the difference you're making and not the end results. If you focus on the results, you're going to get beat down, because there's always going to be somebody doing better than you.
Yeah, as my friend Ron Jensen says, focus on the roots, not the fruit, right? Make sure you're digging in and you're well connected, and the rest of it will take care of itself. And as we wrap up today, Tracy, you know, sometimes as you become a student of the game of living a tremendous or extraordinary life, you come across some hacks or some things that you find that, you know what, that was a cool technology tool or a cool resource that, you know, that accelerated my progress a little bit. Any technology tools, tips, or strategies that you could share with our viewers that maybe would help them to speed things up?
Yeah, well, I read a book called Does Your Business Need a Book by a friend of mine, Bonnie Badowski. And she really talked about how when you are the business, so again, it came from a book, but I would say this is the first book I came out that I did a true book launch campaign. And that was thanks to my team, Kelly, who had the wherewithal and the creativity and the inspiration to drill down and do that. So I think in anything you do, you have to research and get really savvy. Yes, we leave it up to the universe, but boy, we better be doing a lot of work down here kind of thing. And I think this time I really looked at the touch points, how often you have, because I would send something to somebody and say, are you interested? And if they said no, I'd just go away. Oh, that's not right. You got to have all these different touch points. And really, I think the biggest thing, technology, is if you get a good CRM database so you can track. What are we using now? So we're using Zoho now, and that's been wonderful to track who's been touched, what the follow-up is. Did we send him a book? Did we send him a letter? Did we send him a call? Did we send him a video greeting? And it's just help us to put, because you can have all these ideas in the world if you don't sequence them with action steps, and that's what this technology is really good for. You'll miss the boat because you're flitting around out there, and you need to funnel people down. So I think any technology, anything that you can read, and there are a million different ways to do it. But I think just honing in, there's a lot of free samples out there you can do, but pick one, commit to it, and then we'll do a hot wash. We'll evaluate, because this is the first time we've used it, and said yay or nay, and take it from there.
Yeah, well, as they say, the fortune is in the follow-up. And to today's distracting times, it's so easy to, you know, get distracted on something. And if they're interested, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're not interested. If they're not responding, it just means they may be busy. So keeping that follow-up is definitely a key element of success. So if you missed the website, tremendousleadership.com is where you can find the new book provided by our wonderful guest, Tracey Jones, and it's The Message to Millennials. And you can get it in all kinds of different versions. You can also, if you're watching a recording, you can go over to our website, theextraordinarylife.com, click on the community tab, and you can watch the recording of this episode. You can also access contact information for Kelly and for Tracey and for their whole organization. And they've got a tremendous amount of great resources for leaders that want to live a more extraordinary life and have more extraordinary success in the marketplace. So for Tracey Jones and myself, David Bush, and our absentee host, Jim Cathcart, we just want to say thank you for watching today. And thanks again to Tracey and Kelly for putting this all together on the big launch day.
Thank you.
Congratulations, so much, Tracey.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Have a great day, everybody.